Okay, so we should be recording. You should see in front of you, if you're logged in on a computer, a window that has all of the handouts for the class. Does that sound correct? I see David shaking his head. Thank you.
Yes,
so
yes.
Because I have a wicked wide screen, I should only show you one thing at a time, because otherwise when it records, you end up with this really wide, very short, high resolution. All right. Kenny, I just muted you because you had a lot of feedback, but if you need to say something, holler. Now, all of you should someplace on your screen have there's a little black bar, it's usually black, that is the control panel for the Zoom class, or for the Zoom application. On that, there should be a microphone which you can mute or unmute. There's a video which you can start or or close. You don't need to have video, but hey, I knew David was hearing it because he shook his head up and down, so cool. And on my end, I can also push out. I push out what I want to show you. So if I need to show you something different, I highlight a different thing on my really big screen here, and that's what you'll see. Now, let's start. Were there any questions about homework? You may have to unmute yourself if you do, or type it into the, yeah, and Dustin said also Alt-A to mute or Alt-A to unmute. No, Amanda Diaz says no. Sorry, it's an old musical. Well, if nobody's got any questions, I'm going to pop over. I've made up a quick summary of what we're going to talk about.
Drag this off to the side so you can see what he's talking about. But
I can't. This is his.
Oh, that's his screen?
Yeah. So I drag the Zoom like this, you're saying?
Yeah, no, that's yours, not his. You're not on the side. And that piece should probably make it so you can.
Kenny, if you can hear me, I just muted you. If you have a conversation at your end.
You've been muted by the host, so you can't talk.
If you,
The teacher's muted you.
On purpose?
Yes.
Y'all, there's a chat feature, and you can private message people, so please mute. Mute.
It's all right, Kenny. Keep fighting the power.
yeah, so Kenny, if you want to raise your, have a question, then you can unmute yourself. If you're talking to somebody in your room, I've been on a lot of these teleconferences over the years, and you get people with dogs, spouses, kids. I've talked to people on the road and their windows open, and all you hear is from the wind going, across the microphone on their phone. So if you have a question, by all means, either type it in or unmute yourself and ask a question. Otherwise, we'll keep it down to a dull roar. If you looked in there, then you'll notice I went home sick yesterday. I came back in just to do this class because I don't have the same version of Word on my computer at home, and I wanted to be able to talk through things on on Office 2016. So we're going to do a quick perusal of Chapter 2, which you just turned in, hopefully. And then I don't want to spend more than probably 10 or 15 minutes on that, and then we'll talk at length on Chapter 3, which is what's due on Monday. So I don't think I could present, hold on. Exit full screen. Yeah, I'm using Google Slides, which we'll talk about when we get down to PowerPoint Google Slides, but you should be able to see it. If I present it, it goes to full screen. That's its only option. And if I do that, then it's a big, huge thing that people have a hard time seeing. So this is chapter 2. It was all about formatting characters and paragraphs. You had a total of 4 projects. One was comp terms, computer terminology, and you had to change some font and some font size. You had to apply some character formatting to text, as well as well, I guess, I'm sorry, I'm not 100% here. I'm going to flip over to Word real quick, and I'm going to open up a document. Let me make this there it is. You should see it, right? Or is it? Maybe, maybe not. Hold on. Share. Okay. So you should be seeing a blank Word document. And one of the things to keep in mind is that Microsoft gives you 3, 4, 5 different ways to do everything. Here's a good example. Let's talk about bolding. Who could tell me how to make that word bolding bold? Yep, so Dustin says hit Control plus B, which you would have to do, you'd have to highlight it first. And then I could do Control B and it would bold it. I'm gonna make it a little bigger too, just so it's easier to see. Okay, but there are other ways. So I'm gonna unbold it. I can go up to the Home tab and I can go to the font section on the ribbon and I can go to bold. Again, it's got to be highlighted, bold. Now with Word, one of the cool things is you'll notice if I move the mouse off to the side, you'll see that I can actually highlight entire lines when I have that arrow. If I bring it in, it's a mouse cursor. But if I move it out to the side, then I can highlight entire lines or all the lines or some of the lines. So those are all things that you can do to highlight or select text or objects and then change it. So I can highlight that bolding and unbold it. But that's just 2 ways. You'll notice that when I bold this, I get this little pop-up menu, and what's right there? Bold. So I can bold it right off of that pop-up menu. I can also do a right mouse click, and I could go to bold. Notice all I had to do was the cursor was inside the word. So if I wanted to go give the word gives bold, I could just pop in there, go up and hit bold, and it will bold that one word. You'll notice once it's bolded that on the menu at the top and on the pop-up menu from a right mouse click, you'll see it's also bolded there. If I underline it and give it italics, all 3 are highlighted. The last way is I can highlight something and I can go into this. Each of these ribbon boxes has an expand button. And if I press that expand button, I get the font dialog box. These boxes that pop up and allow you to do a whole bunch of things are called dialog boxes. Sorry, that's just what they've been called for the past 40 years. Well, 35. And you'll notice here, I can change all sorts of things. I could do effects like small caps or all caps, you'll notice I get a preview here. Till I hit OK, it doesn't change it out here. Or I could just go up here to the bold, make it regular, italic, bold, bold italic. I could change the font size. So I'm going to turn the bold off. Regular, sorry. Hit OK, and you'll notice it will go back to regular. I could also open that by doing a right mouse click and, oops, sorry. Right mouse click and where did I see it? Saw it a second ago. Oh, right here on the bottom menu that drops up, you'll see font. That's going to open the font dialog box as well. So like I said, a lot of different ways to get to the same thing. You know, we've got the Control plus B. We've got the B button in the font section on the ribbon. We've got right mouse click and the B on the pop-up. We can use the font dialog box, which you can get from the expand button or right mouse button. And we can also highlight text and use that pop-up box. Because again, if we do this, this is a slightly different one than if we do the right mouse click. You get the same top, but with the right mouse click, you get more options down below. So, you know, that's if you just highlight text and then a right mouse click, you get both. So anyway, you got to keep that in mind. Notice though, if I go to one of these other tabs on the top, I lose my home menu. And if I want to do some of those basic features, I've got to go back to the home button. All right, so let's see what else we had. We had change font and font size. Same thing. I can just highlight something to change font size. Here, hold on a second. I'm just going to close my door. So here we are in the again, the home tab, and we can change font size by doing drop down and pick the actual font size that we want. By doing that here, we can also just use the up or down arrows to change font size. And you'll notice it changes in this readout right next to it. You know, if you just think, oh, I really want to, I want to make this font dialog box just a little bit bigger, then I could do that. Or I could go specifically to a particular font size in the drop-down menu. The same thing goes, what was I on? It was 18 for everything else? Nope, 20. I'll put everything to 20. Notice how when I highlighted everything, this box became empty. Anybody know why? Aha, Dustin, you're just sharp today. Everything isn't the same size, so it can't tell you that some of it's 18 and some of it's 20. But as soon as I set it to 20, now it's back to, if I highlight everything, then it says 20. All right, cool. Same thing goes if I highlighted this as bold. you notice it's now showing as being bolded, but if I do this, it's not, even though some of it is bolded. I could bold the whole thing, but all right. If we want to change fonts, there's a huge list of drop-down fonts here, and you can pick different fonts that you want to use. You know, me, I'm a Times New Romans kind of person, but I'd want to, you can also do Control A for all. So that gets everything on the page, and I can go to this. You'll notice that I have recently used fonts. So once you start using one, then you can, you know, it's easier to find it. So I just changed everything to that. All right. I think that was all I wanted to say about that. So paragraph alignment. If we highlighted a paragraph, you'll notice that up under paragraph, I have 4 choices. The default is a left align. All right. David, I muted you. If you need to say something, holler, but there was background noise. I'm not sure what from. So if I highlight a paragraph, then I can go in and the default is a left align. I can do a center align, do a right align, or this last one in the 4 options is what they call justify. It won't do it on this because there's too much of a gap, or maybe, yeah, you know what? It's not that. Hold on a second. I'm going to turn this into a paragraph, not there we go. Now I have a paragraph. Before I had 4 different lines with, so you'll see that's left justified, center, right, and then justify spreads it out as much as it can between the left and the right margins. It may or may not choose to hyphenate a longer word if it has to. And you'll note it, so clicking got to be too long, so it pushed it to the next line. I'm still on the top line, but as soon as I start typing a new word, it pushed it to the next line because there wasn't room anymore. And so that's pretty much how the different alignments work. You can also adjust line spacing. Do you want it to be a tight one line, you know, each line on a regular line, or do I want to start spreading them out? Now, one of the cool things with the paragraph is, or these buttons up here, is it shows you the effects immediately. So you can see what it is that you might want to do. Some of you may remember doing things like papers for, you know, English class where they told you to put 2 or 3 line spaces so that people could put corrections in on your work, because it's awfully hard to write a comment when it's all single spaced. All you've got left is to try to write out here on the margins. And if what you really want to do is talk about this particular word use right here, very hard to do that without you know, enough space. So they would, you know, say, all right, well, you need to put, you know, at least 2 lines, and now I can stick a comment right in between the lines. Anyway, so we can do what they call text indenting. I'm just gonna. I'm making some more text. So we can indent a paragraph in several different ways. One way is that we just do a tab here. that gives you your standard. I have no idea why there's a capital B there. Oh, right, yep. So we can indent that just with a tab. This is different than doing a paragraph indent. So I hit tab, I go backwards, I hit tab, go backwards. I can put tabs in all this. I can put one there, I could put one here. So that looks the exact same, but there's a more appropriate way. So I could grab all of these, and I'm going to go up to paragraph, and I'm going to open the paragraph settings with this expand button. And here what I'm going to do is I have this indentation right here. And I can pick what they call first line hanging, and watch what that looks like. So that's just like if I put tabs at the beginning of it. That's very common if you look in books, where the first line of each paragraph is indented. So that's called first line hanging. Or sorry, first line. And then you have hanging, which is the exact opposite, and you get the first line of each one sticking out the side. I've seen this used in some magazines. It's not as common, but you can use that because as you notice, by doing either one of those, it gives your eye the ability to differentiate between paragraphs, which is important when people are trying to read your work, because it allows the human brain a chance to segment what they're trying to process into smaller pieces. If I asked you, hey, I want you to take an entire car apart, and here's a wrench and a screwdriver, and and said, go for it. That's too big a piece for anybody to, take on all at once. On the other hand, if I give you a wrench and a screwdriver and said, take the headlights off, and then when you're done with that, I said, well, now let's take the taillights off, and let's get the wheels off. Let's put up on jacks. Let's remove the hood. Let's see if we can unbolt the doors. And take it piece by piece. Our brains need to do that in order to process large things. And when you're reading an entire book or a 5-page paper, giving the human brain the ability to break that information up is important. I'm going to go back and notice I can also do a right mouse click, and I can go to paragraph right here, and this will open up that paragraph dialog box. And I'm going to change it back to first line. While we're here, there's other things that I can do. I can set indentation. Did I lose people? Oh, you should still be there. All right. You can increase the indentation. You can even do it from both sides. I'm going to cancel. I'm only going to do it. I'm going to get rid of the hanging. None. So I'm back to this. Watch what I can do with just one paragraph, and then of course you could do it to more. I'm going to go to the paragraph dialog box, and I'm going to indent it from the right and the left by ½ inch. It's a really good way of highlighting a particular piece of text, if this is an important part of your paper and you want to really pull a highlight to it, I mean, sure, you can bold it, but sometimes you just want to bring it out. I love if you've got a quote inserted, from somebody, then you could do something like this. Oh, I even made it, I think I'll make that metallic as well. So that really pulls it out and makes it scream, I'm not part of the rest of it. Pay attention to what I'm saying. And, if you do that with all of your quotes, then, people get used to that. Since we're still on paragraphs, I can go in here, pull open the paragraph dialog box again. And notice that right now there's spacing set that after each paragraph, it's going to add 8 points. Basically, when you're using like a 12-point font, well, that means it's 12 points high. But then you also have spacing in between lines. If I put this down to 0, hit OK, you'll notice it closed the distance between the paragraphs. I could also go back and make it much larger. And it, again, so you can do this paragraph by paragraph or for your entire document or for each page. Any questions? Okay, I'll assume that means no. That's changing line spacing. We can actually copy and do use the format painter. This is one of the things your exercises will have you do. If you look up, again, we're in the Home tab, go to the clipboard, we can click on this format painter, and I'm going to click it here, and it copied the format from here to there. Now, it did something really strange. It copied the indents, but it only copied the italics for that one word. So I'm going to try this again. I'm going to go down here where it's italicized, format painter, and there. I just highlighted the whole thing and it popped it to italics. And so you'll have to do a couple of things. You're going to find that some of the directions, like when you're doing chapter 2 or chapter 3, seem very repetitive. And one of the reasons they're doing that is they want you to see that there's 4 or 5 different ways to do everything. You will develop your own style. I will never be testing you to tell you, all right, I want you to press this button, followed by that button, followed by this button. But I would expect to be able to say, highlight a paragraph and indent it by 1/2 of an inch. Now, how you do that, you could just use the indent button, that's up here. But you'll notice, oh, I can't change the right indent without going all the way in here and change this back to 0. And that'll pull this back all the way over to the edge. All right, here's your trivia question, Your how do you do the undo? Yes, so there's a couple of ways to do undo. One is Control plus Z. So by hitting Control Z, of course, now if I hit Control Z, I'm going to get rid of what I just wrote. But if I do it again, you'll notice that this paragraph up here is going to go back to italicized because that was the last thing I did before that. And then I'm going to lose my indent, or I'm going to indent it over here because that was the thing before that. And then I think the thing before that was the indent on the other side. If I keep going, I go all the way back to before I copied and pasted the formatting. The other place to do it, as Kenny wrote, is up at, this is the shortcut toolbar at the top, and there's an undo and a redo. So now I can hit redo or undo and go back and forth. Notice I can also use the drop-down menu on the undo and go all the way back and pick how far back I want to undo. I went way back. I didn't want to go that far back. There we go. So remember, you can use that down arrow on the undo and go back quite a ways. So there's actually 68 actions that Word is going to let me go back to. I don't want to, I don't want to do that, but so that's there. All right, I'm going to did spacing, we did indenting, did changing alignments. We've talked about, opening up these dialog boxes. Notice I can't open anything else up until I close this. There's the font dialog box next to the font on the ribbon. And then you've got the clipboard, which opens this up. I'm going to clear these all out of here. So this is the clipboard, and I can open and close it with the expand button on the clipboard. So if I said, all right, I want to copy this, and I go copy, it puts it right in here. And then maybe I want this, and I'm going to copy that. Notice I now have both of those things in here. And then I want the Control B, and I'm going to copy that. And now I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to do a new page. There's a number of ways. I'm going to just put a blank page in. And now what I could do is I can go over here and paste these things in any order I want. And I can even paste them multiple times. So that's where the clipboard comes in helpful. Now, the clipboard works across all of the Office documents. So if I wanted to copy something from this document and paste it into a PowerPoint slide or a different Word document, I just highlight what I want, go open the other document, open the clipboard, and those things will be in the clipboard. So the clipboard is not for this document, it is for all of your Microsoft Office products. And so obviously, if you open it up and it's full of stuff, then you need to clear it out and then start working. Otherwise, it's going to have 50 things stuck in here. There's also an option which you can decide whether or not you want the Office clipboard to show up automatically when you start up the program. I wouldn't recommend collect without showing Office clipboard, because then every time you hit Control-C, Control-V, Control-X, it's going to put things in and out of your clipboard. And really quickly, so we didn't cover this, Control plus X is to cut something. Control plus V is to paste something. Control plus C is to copy something. We talked briefly about Control plus Z is to undo, and Control plus A is to select all. So if I do Control A right now, everything on my in my entire document gets selected. And there's a lot more of those. I know we talked about this on Tuesday. You have to remember that Word has been around and Microsoft products have been around since before the mouse, which made these menus at the top almost meaningless. You had to be able to navigate without a mouse. And it would be a combination of keystrokes like Control-X or Control-C that would allow you to pop up there and do those things that you wanted to do. Let's see if yeah, they've turned them off. It used to be, a good example might be, Alt-F would get you to the file menu, R would get you to the review menu, the alternate key plus V would get you to the view key. And these would actually have underlines under the letter that you were supposed to use. But those days are gone, so you don't have to worry about them. All right. Again, I don't see any questions, so let's move out of chapter 2, go into chapter 3, which is your homework for next Monday. So this one had 7 projects. Yes, I know that's a lot. And luckily you've got all the way till Tuesday to do that. And I know a lot of these have a lot of steps inside them. So I'm going to start a new document. And you notice I went to the File menu, which brings us to what they call the Backstage area. And this is where I can go. We're not going to talk about these features. You can see a little bit about your document, see who authored it, when the last time it was saved. I spent 30 minutes editing it. I could add a title, I could add a tag. That makes it easier to search for. But I'm just going to go down here to the menu, and this is where we find New, Open, Save, Save As, and Print. Those are the ones most likely to use. I'm going to do a new blank document. Oops, figures. I got to change which one is being shared. Give me a second. Oh, All right, there, better. Now notice I'm in a new document, and look what's still in the clipboard. All that stuff is still there. So I can choose to clear it, which I'm going to do, which will empty it out. So some of the things that you have to do in Tech Info, you have to create lists. I always spell vegetables wrong. It's a genetic problem, I think. I'm going to also control everything and up the font size so it's easier for you to see. So I'm going to start a list. Now, I can start having a list from the beginning, or I can make a list and then add numbers and bullets to it. So let's start it with a numbered list. And I do that by going up to the paragraph box in the ribbon, and I can choose between bullets and numbers. And I can also check what kind of bullets or what kind of numbers I want to do. Nobody says you have to do 1, 2, 3. You could use Roman numerals. You could use lowercase, uppercase, lowercase with parentheses, numbers with parentheses. It's up to you. And you can also change the list level. So you'll see if I keep making a longer and longer list with more and more subheaders, it's going to go from 1 to A to to Roman numerals back to 1 to A to Roman numerals 1A, but I can change those. I'm going to go with just numbers. So broccoli, spinach, tomatoes, cucumber, radish, lettuce, iceberg, because it's the only real kind. Just kidding. Hold on, I lost my chat window here. Sorry. Eggplant, one of my favorites, one that's in season. Okay, so you see that we've got a list, and I can just highlight the whole list, and I can change it to a bulleted list. I could change it back to a number. I could change it to a different kind of numbering. And I can do whatever I want. That doesn't look pretty, and I have no idea why it's doing that. That's just bizarro. I've never seen it do that. So, welcome to my world. I'm going to indent it a little bit so it's not on the edge. Notice I used bullets and I used the regular paragraph features like indenting. So we can do that. But let's say we go down here to lettuce, and I want to add more than just one type of lettuce. So now I have iceberg. But I want to have that be part of the lettuce. All I have to do is hit the tab button, and it will put it in. Ooh, I don't like that at all. Let me put this back to a different style. Plain numbers, there we go. So now it is iceberg, romaine, butter, what do they call it? Butterhead, whatever it's called, I can't remember. And weeds off the front lawn. That's what I call the spring mix. I know a lot of you probably like the spring mix, but I have the genetic disorder that makes all that stuff taste wicked bitter. And that's why I eat iceberg, because it's one of the few lettuces that my taste buds will allow me to not cringe on when I eat it. So if you can eat all the rest, feel lucky. Luckily, I like most other vegetables. My poor son can't eat green beans. He's got the similar problem. Didn't know that until about 10 years ago, that there's a genetic variance that some people, green beans make them want to gag, literally. There's something in them that their taste buds can't process. And my son is one of those. He'll eat other vegetables, but try to get him to eat a green bean as a child, and it was like watching a comedy show, because he would make so many faces and he could not eat it. And then we finally found out that there was a reason for that, and we stopped forcing him to eat.
Same with cilantro. Some
Yes.
people taste
Yes.
cilantro and it tastes like soap to them.
Yep. And so the more science that's been done on the way our tastes work, the more they're finding these little variations. You know, why do some people like Brussels sprouts and some people don't? Well, I think partly because some are sane and some aren't, but you know, that's a different point. So, but notice that we've done it. This is, you know, this is a list, you know, and then what we have is we have a second order on that list, which is items that are underneath something else. You know, and you could keep going down this as much as you wanted. Now you'll notice we made the header not part of the list, but we could have made it part of the list by doing that. But now let's think about it. All of these need to be moved in one, don't they? Because they're all parts of the vegetables. So I hit the tab button once, and look, it moved all of that over. Now, let's say we want to move on to fruits. I can do two things to move this over. I should be able to do that and use the back arrow, just like I could go forward. Or I can use the Shift tab. If you use Shift with tab, it's the opposite of tab, just so you know. So fruits. And then to go back and forth, I just hit tab or untab. And, you know, we got apples, Granny Smith, Max, yellow delicious. Oh, you know what I could do? I could do delicious and yellow and red. And then go back, you know, I don't even know what another one is. Oh, Roma. You know, and do that, and then go on to pairs and whatever. So this is how we make lists using the list items at the top. You could also get those with a right mouse click. They're right here. You can also see there's an option to adjust the list indents. I could change the numbering values. So there's a lot of options, more than we're going to cover, but you'll see some of those in your homework. Talking too much. Any questions so far? And yes, Dustin, you have to eat green beans. Sorry, it's part of the final. No, you don't. You'll have to do a Word document about them instead. Now, the next thing, the next homework assignment is on the file questions. And this one's a little different, and I'm going to have to undo. I'm going to actually go back over to my other document and switch the focus back. What are you seeing now? Are you seeing the Microsoft gives you or the list? All right, let me, it's really annoying because I have to stop the share and then share the other one, share. Okay, now you should see it. It's just, I get a different kind of highlight, and it's probably a different color, but being colorblind, I don't always see it. So now the question that we're going to look at is applying borders and shading. So I can select a particular paragraph. In this case, the first of the 3 paragraphs that we were working with. Up under paragraph on the ribbon, if I'm in the Home tab, you'll notice that there is a borders command. And I can put a bottom border, top border, left, right, no border, all borders, outside border, inside border. Now, there is no inside border because there's only one paragraph. There's no inside places. If I had selected 2 paragraphs and selected inside border, it would have put a border in between the paragraphs. So I'm going to put an outside border. So we now have a, we now have a border around that section. I could just as easily have done it around 2 borders. And one of the things you'll find helpful is sometimes you need to set it to no borders and then put it back to, so now we have an outside border, or if we do all borders, it breaks it up in between. Or if we did inside borders, it only does a line in between the paragraphs. I'm just going to go with an outside border. Now, another option right next to it is shading. It's got the little fill bucket that if you've ever used any paint program or whatnot. And so I'm going to select this, and I can pick a color that I want to be in there. Now you'll notice if I stay with light colors, it leaves all the text as black. If I go down to some of the darkest ones, it will shift the font to white, because black text on a black box is not going to do me any good, is it? So if I selected a black box and then I went back over to the font color and actually set it to black, I have an empty paragraph. The stuff is there, you just can't see it. So I'm going to highlight it again. I'm going to go in here and put it back to white font. This is a really good way to highlight something in your document as well. Just realize that if you're paying for the printer ink, that takes a tremendously larger amount of ink than it did to print just the text in black. Here on campus, I don't think they care. They just charge you by the page. All right, oops. Sorry, my grammar in is bad. It should have been sorry, comma, Dustin asked if he had to eat green beans on the final. Not that Dustin is a sorry person. Okay, now here's where things get a little tricky.
No, he is. He's pretty sorry. Okay, anyway.
Dustin, thrown under the bus.
Wait, what? Huh? What?
What? Amanda just threw you under the bus.
Well, that's usual. Okay.
Yep. All right. Now, let's say we wanted to put a border around this. This is where things get a little funky. Notice that the last option I used, which was to set an outside border, if I click this, it can't treat different sections that have different indent characteristics as the same object. So there's no way to have this and this in the same outline. And it gets even worse if I do a tab here. So just realize wherever you're working, you're not going to want to put these around any kind of bullets or numbering. They just don't work. So if I put this as a number, same thing. It's the ugliest thing you'll ever see. So in this case, we'll turn it off for here, go to no borders, but we can still do the border up top. That's just a heads up. So we did shading. Now you could do shading inside of a paragraph. So I just want these 3 lines to be shaded. I'll go up here and give them a little bit of shading. Now, this is very different. Now you need to hear this and listen carefully. Shading is different than highlighting. So under font, there's a highlight, text highlight option. And then under paragraph, there is a shading section. Here, hold on a second, I gotta sneeze. Now, give me a minute while I find my lung. So if I were to go and pick, a different section of text here, and go to the highlight, it looks similar, but watch what happens when we go to a whole paragraph. Let me turn this back to no shading. And there's a difference between white shading and no color. We want no color. Now I better put it back to automatic, which is black. I'm even going to get rid of the border. So if I want to highlight this, do shading of yellow, and now I'm going to do this, highlight in yellow, they look the same. But the border will do the entire box, the whole, even though there's no text out here, and shading will stop where the text ends. So there are some slight differences. And if I try to apply highlighting to lists like this, you will get lines in between that are not highlighted. Whereas if I did shading on this, it does the whole thing. So those are 2 very different characteristics. And so if you end up with something looking, where you have, why do I have white lines in between it? I want it all to be yellow. Or if I want the yellow to go all the way to the edge or whatever color you're picking, you need to use shading rather than highlighting. And you've got all sorts of colors to pick from. So, sorry. The highlighter is more for you're reading along something and you just want to do that. And that way you're like bringing things to the forefront for your review later. Oh. Any questions? All right, so Don't mind me, I'm just trying to make something we can sort. I now have 5 paragraphs here, and I can sort these. Yeah, now I got to go look where paragraph. Give me a second. It's one of those things I keep forgetting where they put it.
Hey Dom, quick question.
Sure.
I'm trying to do a little bit of homework right now. I accidentally undid something, and how do I redo it?
So at
Like-
the top, there's an undo button,
Uh-huh.
or you can just do Control Z.
No. I undid it already. Can I redo it? Like, can I
Oh.
bring it back? I did it by accident.
Yes. So also at the, well, here, hold on. So at the top on your shortcuts bar at the very top of, well, what version of Word are you in?
The one that we're supposed to use for the
Okay.
class. I don't
Yep.
know. I guess 2016.
Good. So at the very top, you should see a couple of buttons at the very, very top. One of them is an arrow to the left, and one is kind of a circular arrow.
Yeah.
And so one of those is to undo, and one is to redo. If you circle over it, it says undo typing and redo typing. It'll undo or redo anything that you did. It's not just typing.
So Control Y.
Yeah, I mean, you could do insert a picture and then undo it and redo it. It doesn't really.
Yay! I was freaking out.
Okay, and again, you know, you can do that to a certain level. All right.
Yay! Thank you.
Sure. Oh, there we go. So we have on the paragraph, there's a sort button that just says A to Z with a down arrow. Sorry. The biohazard team comes in later and sterilizes the office. So if I do that, I've got what I want to sort highlighted, and I'm going to go and hit the sort button, and I'm going to see, oh, do I want to sort by paragraphs? In this case, I do. And how do I want to sort it? Well, by text, because that's all I have. But if they were numbers or dates, I could have it sort by that. And do I want A to Z, or do I want Z to A? So I'm going to sort the paragraphs by text ascending, which means it's going to put the A in the beginning and the, whatever else. And you'll notice that all the paragraphs start with a B, a C, an A, a Z, and a C. And the difference between the two C's is one says C button and one says C weird. So the C button should come out ahead of the C weird because it's going to look for the next letter. There's no header row, and I'm going to hit OK. Oh, there you go. So A, B, C button, C weird, and Z button. I mean, I realize this is just gibberish paragraphs, but that's how you can sort paragraphs. If we went down to here, I'm going to highlight this list, and while I'm here, we'll add Control plus Y. Should have done tabs to begin with. Is to redo. I'm going to fix this because this is where it's like, what did you do, Tom? Now, just so you know, so what I did was when I made this list the first time, I just put some spaces in here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 spaces. But to get them to all line up, I'm going to use a tab instead. So I highlight the 4 spaces, and then I hit tab, and it replaces it. Now notice it just toggles back and forth because there's a tab there. Tab. Tab. There we go. Notice how much cleaner it is now in terms of how they line up. So if I go to highlight this And again, I'm going to go to sort. These are all actually paragraphs because there's a carriage return. There's an enter that was pushed there, 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 and there. So they're each paragraphs. And I want to do ascending again. So it should put the control A, then the control C, then D, X, Y, and Z. So I'm going to hit OK, and there we go. So I can make a nice sorted list that way. If I actually made this a bulleted, well, never. I'm not going to do a numbered list because that's automatically sorted. I'll be quiet about that. So that's creating borders, applying sorting paragraphs. All right, now, and I'll tell you this because a lot of you will have issues with it. I'm going to get a new, I'm going to go back to the other document. Now I'm going to make a new one. New blank document. Stop share, share, blank document, share. Okay, so now you're looking at a blank document. I'm just going to close the clipboard because I want all the space. So tabs. Tabs allow you to do a lot of powerful things in Word, and they also drive people nuts. So there's a couple of ways that you do tabs. One is, oh, I don't know, there's a tab button on the keyboard, and you can tab over. The default value for tab is 1/2 inch. And I'll also go up a little bit bigger on the font here. So every time I hit the tab, you'll notice you can see the ruler at the top and on the sides here, but right now I'm at 0. Tab once, I'm at 1/2 inch. Tab 2, I'm at 1 inch. 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, and so forth. So if I did, Bob tab, it's going to go to 1/2 inch. Now I'm at 1 inch, and I, drew, and go back down. I might do, Sally and Beth, and Henrietta and Henry. So I make whatever lists, and I can easily line them up just by using tabs. There's 2 tabs in between. Actually, 1 tab, 2 tabs, 3 tabs up here. If I want to actually set tabs and not use the default ones, then up here on the ruler, I can actually click and put tabs there. Now you'll notice right over at where the 2 rulers meet, up here in the kind of left corner, it's set to a left tab right now. I can click it to make a center tab. I can click it again to make a right tab, or back to yeah, come on. There we go.
No, Tom, I'm freaking out.
What?
Okay, I was uploading my homework, and I stupidly clicked turn in, but I only put in like 3 out of like the 7 projects.
Okay, so remind
Please
me.
reopen it for me.
Okay, I will at the end of class.
I'm going to cry. Don't forget, please.
Well, remind me before we hang up.
Okay, please.
All right, so if I have this set to left tab, and okay, this is over at 1.5 inches. If I click right here, I just inserted a left tab. And what that means is I'm going to pull Drew all the way back. If I hit tab once now, it takes me to the next defined tab. But if I don't have any next defined tabs, then they're going to be every 1/2 inch. So it's like every 1/2 inch unless I define them. So if it's 0 to 1.5, I could do another one at 3. I could do another one at 4.5. And now tab, oops. So now you see that they are 1 tab apart from each other, set at 1.5, 3, and 4.5. That doesn't apply down here because I didn't highlight everything when I set those tabs up. So Henrietta and Henry are still stuck by themselves. I can actually go and, I don't know if you, I'm going to go slower. So if you look up at the ruler, you'll see the tabs there, but if I go down to the next line, all the tabs disappear. And so what I can do is I can go back up to the end of Beth here, and I'm going to bring Henrietta and Henry up onto the defined line by just hitting the delete button. Now, if I hit return, does their line now have those defined tabs on it? It does. And I can line them up, and we're, and just keep doing that. And if I go down to a new line, it's still there. We got a lot of those people in the class. And those tabs are going to stay because I'm at the end of the document right here. I can't go anywhere else. So those tabs are going to stay with me. I can always get rid of them. And one of the ways I can get rid of tabs is to say I didn't want the tabs on that line. I can grab that tab, drag it right over to the edge. There. Now they're back to that half-inch tab. So I'd have to actually go in and put another one in there. And there aren't any assigned for that line. These lines still have them. Have I confused everybody yet?
No.
All right. And it'll walk you through that. So remember, up in this upper left corner of the work area, there's what looks like a little L, and all that stands for is a left tab. I could do a center tab. Actually, I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to assign a left tab at a ½ inch. Oh, undo. Cancel. Undo. I'm going to do a left tab. I got to go all the way back, find a left tab. Left tab at a ½ inch. Now I'm going to do a center tab, which looks like a little upside down T. And I'm going to put that at 3 1/4 because that's the center of a 6½ inch wide work area. And then I'm going to do a right tab at 6 inches because that's a ½ inch in from the end. And now watch what happens. So this is a paper by Thomas Bickford. The title is Using Tabs in Word, and today's date is March 21st, 2019. So what I just did was I did a left align, a center align, and a right align. And I could make the text a little smaller so I have more room. I could move those tabs around. I said I could move those tabs. There we go. And move this in a little bit more, as long as I have space. And put whatever information I want to do there. Bob.
Dustin, I forgot.
This or that. March 22nd. So what we've done is we've created a center kind of thing. This is just using the ruler. I'm going to actually clear all the tabs off this page. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to open up paragraphs. And if you look down at the very bottom of the paragraph dialog box, you'll see a tab. When I click on tabs, sorry, I put it way off in the distant corner. This is where it's the tab dialog box. I have the option to clear all. Now watch what happens to the text when I clear all. All the tabs I had, other than the leading tabs, because that was just, it's a tab. At the beginning of the document, there's a tab here. So those are all ½ inch tabs. They take you to the next available ½ inch. But I'm going to go to the end of the document here, and I'm going to go back to tabs. Sorry, tabs. And I'm going to define tabs here. So the default tab stop, remember, was 1/2 inch. I could change that for the whole document. And I could set it to be 1 inch, 0.3 inches, whatever you want. And I'm going to set a left tab at 1 inch. And it's going to be just a plain left tab. And I'm going to hit set. And now it's in the list right here. And if I click on it, it shows as left with no leader. All right, now I'm going to go to 3.25 inches. And I'm going to actually put something unusual. It's called a bar. And you'll see what that looks like when we actually use it. I'm going to set that. If I click on that, you'll notice it says bar, whereas if I click on the one, it's a left with no leader. And the last one I'm going to put in here will be a, 5.5 inch right. And I'm going to set that. So I now have 3 tabs. When I hit OK, it'll define those. And if you look up top here, you'll see there's our left tab, there's our right tab, and here's this little bar, which I'll show you how that works. It put a bar right in the center. So if I go and say, tab from Bickford, and then March 21st, 2019, do another one, and we do Dustin Dino, and he'll give his presentation tomorrow, and then we'll do, Kenny Rowe. And no, you don't have presentations. I'm just putting information in. So this gave us a really nice way to display, a list. Couple of important things. You'll notice that there's space in between all of these lines. Sometimes you don't want that space. That space comes because we use the normal style, which, if we look under paragraph, has this 8 points after every single paragraph. So I can either set this back to 0, and I can set line spacing to single, or I could just go to no spacing. Oops, well, if I do no spacing, it's getting rid of my tabs. I don't want to do that. I'm just going to go to paragraph. If I had done no spacing before, it would have worked, but it cleared out everything. So now I have a much more compact list with those 3 things on it. Now, get out of wherever I have tabs assigned. The last one I want to show you is we're going to define some tabs. And I'm going to do, just leave it at the left. The only one I'm going to do is I'm going to go to 6.5. And actually, you can put in inches or not. It doesn't really matter. I'm going to do a right one. And I'm going to do what they call a period leader, just a bunch of period, dots. And I'm going to set that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to write, Tom Bickford. And when I hit tab, I get that leader all the way across. And then as I start typing in the date, it does that. If you've ever looked in an appendix in a table of contents, things like that, they often use that because when you get a long list of stuff, sometimes it's hard to read across an entire page from one side to the other. Now, if at the very beginning I put a tab, it really messes things up. So I can't just, because there's only one tab defined on this whole line, and it's this right mouse tab right over here. So if I needed to actually have those indented one tab, I'd have to go in and add a left tab right there. Oops, sorry, that's a right tab. Control undo. Find my left tab. Come on. There we go. And now if I put a tab here, tab, tab. So there's a lot of different options that you have available. Keep in mind that when you hit tab or when you go to the next tab, if what you're writing has already gone beyond the tab, it's going to go find the next available tab. So what do we got here? We got nothing. So I'm going to put in a left tab at 1.5. Put in a left tab. There we go. And then I'm going to put one in at 5. Yeah, 4.5. So I've got 2 tabs on this line, and I'm going to put I want to put my name, then I want to put my email address, then I want to put my position, something like that. So if I did Tom Bickford, T Bickford at emcc.edu, and then faculty. So I can do that. Worked fine. But what happens if I do and then hit tab and do T Bickford at emcc.edu? The reason that it missed this first tab was because the name went beyond where the tab was. So when I hit tab, it went to the next defined tab. So keep that in mind. On the other hand, if I just delete my middle name, boom, it's back to where it needs to be, and I can put whatever I want in. Hopefully that makes sense. We did numbered lists. Oops, sorry, I went. All right. I'm going to go back to one of the other documents here. Thank you for all your patience. You're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back to our friend Microsoft here. I'm going to clear the clipboard. If I want to move this paragraph someplace else, I can do a Control X, or I can go up and do cut up in the clipboard. I'm a Control X kind of guy because I actually was around before mice. So I've been using this for, well, decades. I think Control X first came out in the middle of the 1960s. And I'm going to do a Control, and you'll notice it just put it in the clipboard. But maybe I also want to move this one too. So I'm going to do Control X of that. Now I have 2 over here. And I'm going to go down, and I have 2 choices if I want to put them down here. If I do Control V, which is paste, it's only going to put the last one. If I go up over here to the clipboard, I can paste this, and then I can paste this one. I could also just click it like that. And when I'm done with these, I can either delete each one. Oops. Ah. All right, let me try that again. Oh, that was different. Well, there's one for you. Did you know that if you control and do your mouse zoom or your mouse wheel, it'll zoom in and out? Even I learn something new every day. All right, now I'm going to go back down here to some empty spot and just click, click. And so there's a difference between clearing these out of the clipboard and deleting them. If I delete them, I will delete it out of where I just put it. So take this Control A here. Actually, I'm going to do the Control B. I want to see if it moves it from both of them. So if I delete this, we're going to lose it off this page. No, we didn't. Why did it do it last time? I don't know. Never mind. I'm hallucinating in my old age. So again, cutting and pasting. I could also forget the clipboard. I just copy this, go wherever I want to paste it, and just do a Control V, and it's going to paste it down there. Now, you'll notice I pasted it right on the end of a list. I might need to put another space in there so I don't get sucked up into this 1, 2, 3, 4 list. If you notice that it did that. Copying text is the same. It's just that when you highlight something, use the copy button instead of the cut button, but the paste is the same. Now, I'm going to copy this, which has a border. It's got highlights of fonts. It's got shading. So I'm going to do a Control Copy. Actually, I'll go Copy. Now I'm going to go down to the bottom, and I'm going to do a paste, but I'm going to use the down arrow. And notice I have keep source formatting. So however it was where I copied it from or cut it from, I'm going to paste it that way. I could merge the formatting, which doesn't do much difference in this case, or I can just do just the text. And in this case, those two are both the same. So you have to decide what you want to do. A good example, I'm just giving, I know you're seeing what I'm doing, but I'm going to a website. I'm on Wikipedia. I'm going to grab a paragraph. It's got a lot of hyperlinks in it. It's got a lot of, all right, I'm on a new page. If I do a Control V or paste, I get all of this, you know, very different. The font is different. The font size is different. I've got, you know, links in here that it's even going to let me click to follow them. I can do all of that. Ooh, I didn't want that. I want it to look like the rest of my paper. So I'm going to go to paste, and I can either merge the format, which is going to still leave me with the links, but it's going to be in the font and the font size that I'm using, or I can go to just plain text, and it removes all of the hypertext, the URLs that'll take me to those places. So you have to decide which one you want. I do this, and with Word, you'll notice if you mouse over a something that's been linked, then I can do a Control click to follow it, and it will actually open up that website. I'm not going to do that. Any questions at all?
No.
So you should be able to go out, do chapter 3 just fine. I'll try to, I mean, I'll get chapter 2 looked at this weekend. For those of you who have turned it in now. And yes, Amanda, I will open that up if you just hang on for a minute after we're done.
Okay, because I'm going to cry.
Well,
that's up to you, but I will open it up for you.
It's true, she's gonna cry.
Well, I think I've been clear that said I will open it up, so hopefully you will not cry. But I don't have control over that. Just saying. If there aren't any other questions, then I think we're done. Cool. Then I'm going to hang up. Well, I'm not going to hang up. I'm going to stop the